Hello and welcome to The Stinger, a superfan's guide to Marvel, Star Wars, and much more in fandom. I'm one of your co-hosts, Josh Gann, and joining me as always, it's not about how or why, it's about who. It's Trent Neely and Joseph Sneed. How we doing, guys?
Happy to be back talking about one of the best characters in the canon we got going
Yes,
these days.
sir.
One of the best stories they've told in the MCU too, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, okay, let's do it. I want bold accusations. I want bold takes today, guys. Like there's a lot circulating around Marvel these days. So we're going to focus on the positive today and talk about Loki, our favorite god of mischief. Um as always, thank you for being here. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and you can subscribe to us on YouTube, and then you can follow us on Instagram and on TikTok at The Stinger Pod. All right. I'm a do it now. Spoiler warning. We're only a minute in. We're getting straight to business today. Spoiler warning right out of the gate. If you have not watched Loki season 2, do not listen any further because I really would not want to spoil what is truly a great ending to a great show for you. So, all right, there's your warning. All right, Loki season 2. It came to a close, guys. It's crazy. How are we feeling, post Loki? There's a lot of Marvel news going around right now, but like how are we feeling with Loki season 2 in the books now?
I think Loki season 2 is a perfect closure for that character, whether that's a permanent closure or a temporary one. We can debate and wait and see a
Sure.
little bit about. But narratively, what a interesting show, right? Like I feel like if I challenge people to like, can you tell me the plot of Loki season 1 or 2 like 2 years from now? I doubt people could actually tell it to me like front to back. And so it's a weird thing where I don't know if I enjoyed the story of season 2 this much. I don't really care about this time loom at all. Sorry, writers. I know you worked really hard on that probably, but I really couldn't have cared less about that time loom. But the journey for our boy Loki and Tom Hiddleston's performance and Owen Wilson as Mobius is so good. It almost doesn't matter my other issues. Like that's how good
Okay.
this finale is. Also, can we address that like even when there's been great Disney Plus shows like WandaVision and stuff, the episode 6s have not been the best. This is like the first good Disney Plus Marvel finale. I think that they have actually like I'm like you landed the plane. Like good job.
At least since Loki season 1.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course, I liked. I think Hawkeye and Moon Knight were afterwards, and I liked both of those.
But I think
They were okay.
like the finales were worse
Yeah.
than the episodes before it is all I mean.
No, yeah, and it matters. For the finale, like I can talk about this later, but I think it significantly changes how I think of a show personally.
Sure.
And the fact that this one was so good is, I'm excited. I'm excited.
And this finale went full circle, being the same title as the very first episode.
Yes,
and also revisiting scenes from the first episode.
Yeah.
yes,
So good.
so symbolic. We can talk about it more later. Today we are here to talk about Loki, specifically the character, not necessarily the TV show, although a lot of what we're going to talk about is going to be the TV show. So a little while ago we did a character study on Ahsoka in anticipation of her series, and I feel like we kicked around the idea of a Loki character study probably earlier in the year and was just like, there's other stuff we want to talk about right now. It's okay. But then the season finale happened, and I'm just like, I can't not. Like, rarely in this genre of content do we get such a satisfying end to a character's journey. So today we are talking about our beloved God of Mischief. We are surveying the sacred timeline, and we are discussing Loki not only through the Infinity Saga and all of the movies that we have seen him in, but in his own show, in the Loki Disney Plus series. And so, with that, guys, let me just kick it off. Maybe let's actually start personally. Like, we just did our villains draft a little while ago. Loki's name came up a bunch in that. How important of a character was Loki to you prior to the TV show that just has come out over the last 2 years?
I mean, I think in terms of pure performances, it's one of my favorites in the MCU for sure. And definitely as a character, I think it's sort of an unfair question in a way because a lot of MCU villains show up for one movie and then are killed off.
Yeah.
And then Loki's had this, what's the math here? Like 13 years Tom Hiddleston played this character. And so it's like, or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And so it's like, yeah, he got more to do. And he literally got to go from kind of a Shakespearean mustache twirly villain in a way to like this very emotionally resonant character. I was going to talk about this a little bit later. It's funny to see how like Avengers, like the first Avengers movie, like changes because like he's the villain of that movie, and then because they make him such a heroic figure, they kind of have to like recanonize it as like, oh yeah, that weird like tantrum that Loki threw once
Yes.
and tried to take over Earth, but I'm a good guy. Like, I'm not saying that makes Avengers bad at all, but it is a funny way to like rechange this seismic movie in the MCU. Anyway,
A
but yeah,
genocidal tantrum. That
yeah,
totally chill. That's
yeah,
totally
yeah.
fine.
That created the Avengers, but also like we kind of have to make this just like seem cute and fun now.
Right,
Um,
right.
but no, I think it's so great. And I think the reason they had to do so many different variations on this character is that people latched onto Tom Hiddleston's performance. But credit where credit's due, I think Kenneth Branagh setting up that first Thor movie as like just a Shakespearean story of two sons searching for their father's approval is like a great way to set up a character study. Like, I think that Genesis deserves to be praised.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was sitting here thinking about the importance of Loki to the MCU. And except for Iron Man, I can't think of anybody more important than Loki to its success. Because if Loki doesn't work in that first Avengers movie, the MCU kind of falls apart. Because you can have your standalone movies like Iron Man and Thor and Incredible Hulk, and Captain America: The First Avenger that had varying levels of success. You run into the Avengers, and if that movie fails, then they're like, okay, you just can't do crossovers.
Right.
So just go back. Iron Man is his own thing, and Captain America is his own thing. And so I think Loki's importance to the overall MCU is really only beaten by Iron Man. It's not my favorite character, but I think just looking at what doesn't work without him, the Thor movies don't really work without Loki. The rest of the Avengers movies don't work without Loki. So you can have still these kind of spin-off type of things going, but I think he, from kind of start to now, has driven the whole storyline where, even if you look at a movie like Age of Ultron that Loki's not in, they're still dealing with the fallout of his attack on Earth, and then obviously his part in Infinity War, while short, was very impactful to Thor's story, and and then even his little scene in Endgame that spins off into the Loki show, where now Loki is not only kind of the driving, inciting force for the Infinity Saga, but now he's like the driving force in the multiverse saga.
He certainly is. Like it all goes back to him in some way. Where no matter where you pick in the Marvel timeline, whether it's phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like in some way you can trace back to Loki.
Yeah.
And so that kind of has me thinking. Me and Haley actually, after watching the finale, talked about this between ourselves because Haley is officially an MCU fan at this point in her life. Is Loki the greatest MCU character?
He's up there. Like, I think it's really between him, Vulture, and like Thanos, like, and Iron Man. Like, if we're doing hero stuff too. Like,
did you say Vulture?
Yeah, Vulture's up there, baby.
One of the greatest MCU characters.
Yeah, I stand by that. I'm not gonna take that back.
I mean, I know we liked him in the villains draft, but like, wow,
He's maybe
I
one of
did
the
not
more.
see that
I
coming.
think he's one of the most. This is coming from like the Vulture guy. He's one of the most complex ones. I don't know if he's one of the greatest. I'd say you take Loki, Iron Man, Thor. Before this is coming from someone who liked Love and Thunder enough. Thor kind of before Love and Thunder. I think my favorite version of Thor was the Infinity War one.
100%.
Yeah, same.
Thanos.
Are none of us going to throw Steve Rogers any love? Like, it's fine, but I find it interesting.
We'll throw Steve Rogers some
he
love.
definitely should be in this list.
But let me give you one that's flying under the radar some, and he shouldn't after this year.
I know what you're gonna say.
Rocket.
Yeah, I was about to say it. I was about to say his name. Rocket. Yes.
Actually, yep. Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, it's great. We're doing a great little like compiled list. Like, all of those characters deserve to be in the conversation. But to me, like, I think it comes down to specifically after this finale, it comes down to Iron Man versus Loki to me.
I think that's fair. I think that's totally fair.
And I'm not gonna lie, guys. I might say it's Loki is the greatest character because I'm just brace yourselves, okay? But I personally think I felt a heavier weight after this finale, knowing everything that like we have seen in Loki's journey than I did when Tony Stark died.
Well, so here's the thing.
That's a take that's heating some stuff up, I think.
That's what I think too.
I don't agree with it, but I think that it is an understandable argument because, and this is not a flaw of Infinity War per se, but because Iron Man and Steve Rogers didn't die in Infinity War, we knew that one or both of them was going to die in Endgame. So I think you had a whole year to sort of prep for that, whereas you didn't know where Loki season 2 was going to end, right?
Yes.
So I think in terms of, I can't quite meet you there that it's better. I think in terms of more of a gut punch.
Yeah.
I
think that's what I'm trying to say. Actually,
okay, then I'll grant that. Sure.
I think that's what I'm trying to say. It was more of a gut punch to me.
Yes, I'll grant that.
In Loki season 2 than the Iron Man death was. I also felt like Endgame telegraphed the Iron Man death a little bit. Tony having a daughter in the first 30 minutes or whatever kind of gets your eyebrows raised a little bit.
I have said over the years that Cap or Iron Man should have died in Infinity War. One of them should have died then, so that they didn't have Endgame just building up the hype of one of them dying. And that
Joseph disagree?
Yeah, I disagree.
That's okay. It's spicy. I know.
I like Endgame having the 6 original Avengers.
That is cool. That's where the tension comes.
I think if we, because I'm not gonna lie, that idea sounds pretty wild to me. Like that would be so ballsy, and I like that. But I think if we didn't have the scene of Tony and Steve going back to Camp Lehigh or whatever it is, and Tony and like them going on that adventure together is arguably one of my favorite scenes in all of the MCU.
It is.
Yeah.
It's really good.
So and you've got that fight with Iron Man, Thor, Captain America versus Thanos.
Right. I mean that is kind of a big deal.
I think Infinity War could have used like one more major actual character death and not like a dusting death.
Right. The dustings don't count. I'm not counting those as deaths.
Which
Loki dies in the first 5 minutes.
Loki dies, Heimdall dies, Vision dies, Gamora dies.
And they all come back in some manner.
Well, Heimdall stayed dead.
But we saw him in Valhalla.
Yeah, but he was still dead. That one doesn't count.
That was just validating that multiple afterlives exist in MCU canon.
You don't think everyone's going to come down from Valhalla in Thor 5 and we're going to get... I can already see it happening.
Probably, actually.
Anyways, this is a very sidetracked conversation.
I don't know. I think, maybe if we had someone like, I don't want to kill Rhodey, but someone like Rhodey.
Fair.
maybe, or
There could have been. I agree with you. In essence, I agree with you. There could have been a one more weightier final death.
Maybe that's more what I mean. Maybe I'm not quite bold enough to kill off one of the leads.
yeah, I mean, and if you're gonna do it, I mean, do it to like Hawkeye at that point.
Dang. I mean, yeah.
Hey, I love our boy, but if we're talking about the original six Avengers,
There is
you
a weak
know,
link. It is there. It can be said. All right, guys. With Loki season 2 ending the way it did, Loki breaks the temporal loom. He opens up this random magical portal, destroying, or not destroying, but killing all the timelines only to revive them under his own control, and replaces He Who Remains, taking a throne at the end of time and reinstating the multiverse under his control. What I mean, I just like instant reactions, guys. What was going through your brain when you saw that happen?
Well, so I'll take it a little bit further back when it was just
Okay.
him trying to do like the like perfecting the loom thing and learning like everything about math and physics. Like I love like the time travel to perfect what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Like trope, like Groundhog Day, Edge of Tomorrow.
Mhm.
Like I'm even curious about Madam Web just because it has a little bit of that flavor in there.
Go ahead, Trent.
I'll be. I'm not gonna see it in the theaters, guys. I'm just saying I like that trope. I like it. So I was loving that when Obi's like it would take centuries, and then it's like centuries later across the text. Like
Dagger.
I
that's
was
my
Dagger.
jam.
I was hearing the SpongeBob voiceover guy like centuries
Yeah,
later.
yeah, me too, 100%. And then I was like, oh, is he actually gonna kill Sylvie? Like the show had
Ooh,
me that I thought for half a second, not fully, but for
really?
half a second, I was like, oh, he might do this. And then but yeah, I like it so much better, even though like I do think that him being able to resurrect dead branches, like when all we've seen from his magic is illusion magic, I'm like, okay, that seems convenient, but sure. um like, a show got a show, and
Right.
it works from a character moment, and you get the whole callback to like even classic Loki in season
Yeah.
one, who fought
Hmm.
Goliath. Like it sort of reminded me of that moment too.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
so yeah, no, it really worked for me. And the idea of I think Joseph phrased it as like Loki getting a throne that he doesn't actually want after chasing
Yep.
power for his whole MCU journey
Mhm.
is just
Whew.
like chef's kiss. Not to steal your phrase, Joseph, sorry.
No, I mean that's what I was thinking, because you look at Thor Thor one, he's like, I want to be the heir to the throne, and then Avengers, he's like, okay, I'm not the heir to the throne, so I'm just going to rule Earth. And then the Dark World, he ends up being on the throne of Asgard, but disguised. And then you see kind of the turn in Ragnarok, where he starts turning good, and then he dies. But throughout that whole time, he's like, Loki's going for a throne. And then you see this flashback to Endgame, where the Loki series starts with the branch timeline, and he's sitting there like, I'm going to rule the TVA. And then he finally gets to the end of it, and he becomes truly burdened with glorious
It's
purpose,
so
which
incredible.
is
It's so
which is
good.
Loki's thing that he's always gone for. And he sits down on the throne, and it's like, man, Loki got everything he wanted, and that monkey's paw couldn't have curled any more than
No.
it did,
Yeah.
because he's he's alone. Because Loki in the first Avengers movie is like, kneel before me, worship me, I'm the god, and rule you. And now it's like he's on a throne with literally nobody around, but
Yeah.
surrounded by everybody
It's crazy.
that just can't see him. So I thought it was a great character choice, and such a change that shows where Loki has like come from and where he's gone. Because you see him, and it's almost like the new thing about Loki's are they always fail,
Mm.
but their final failure is in service of something better.
Mm. I
And then
like that.
this time he succeeds, and it's like a reverse. Like he succeeds, but he also fails what he wants.
It's
Because in episode, it was like, what was it, episode 5? He's like, I miss my friends. I want my friends back. And now he's just alone at the end of time.
I I rewatched the first episode of this show, season 1, episode 1, earlier tonight in preparation for this podcast because I love that episode. And in the time theater, Loki has Mobius show him all the events that are going to happen throughout the rest of his life that he hasn't seen and lived up to this point. And then he goes on a little like run around the TVA, escapes some people, but then he comes back to the time theater and he has like a follow-up conversation with Mobius where he's basically like, because earlier Mobius asked him, do you enjoy hurting people? And Loki's like, like of his own accord, without him being prompted, it's like, I don't enjoy hurting people, I promise. Like, it's all a facade. He's almost admitting that he doesn't want to rule and reign over people, but he feels like he has to
Mm-hmm.
because that's his glorious purpose, right?
Well, he's the son of 2 kings too,
Right.
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 but neither of the kings sees him as like a worthy successor.
Yeah.
Because Laufey just like left him out to die, and then Odin kind of favored Thor.
Yep. Yep. No, definitely. He definitely favored Thor. And I just find that it's so interesting. If you take him in that moment there, he's just seen his whole life play out and he realizes like, I I do want a throne, I do want to control, but like there is something deeper in me. I actually care about people. I actually care about my brother. I love people. I love my brother, right? So he was seeking out this throne in pursuit of control with that underlying motive. And his story ends in like a much more righteous and just pursuit of
Mm-hmm.
that throne with the same underlying motive of I do love people. I do care about people. Except this time the throne that he gets is coming at a cost, not a gain. And I just think that is
Mm-hmm.
so beautiful. It is so good. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh my god, it's perfect. The more perfect it gets, the more time I sit and think about it.
Yeah, for sure.
I I really, Trent, you said something earlier that I want to bring back up here. You were like you have a critique of the Loki show that it essentially takes his character arc that already happened in the Infinity Saga and condenses it into essentially the course of a single episode and then like extends on it throughout the season. You wanna elaborate on that a little bit?
I mean, yeah, because it's basically just like I have to stop this Loki variant in season 1. Then he finds it's Sylvie, and they have their whole like love thing going on. But I do think that whole character dynamic is great because it's Loki learning to confront and love the things about himself, and like
Mm,
literally and metaphorically. That is genius.
mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, and but I do think at the end of the day, it is this thing of like he ends season 1 by being like, you can't trust and I can't be trusted. And it's like that is sort of where he ends up in Infinity War, right? Like, if we're being honest, like, yes, he loves Thor and he's sort of an anti-hero, but he also did steal the Tesseract again. And
Yeah.
so it's like I can't trust and I can't be trusted. I do think the show in a very clever way and without repeating the events of those movies, which I do admire. I do think at the end of the day, it is just like, how can we do this again with Tom, but different. Um, and so I do think it makes the plotting of the show weird for me. I think the character stuff works great. I think the narrative stuff is. I don't even know what fully it doesn't resonate with me for, but something about it doesn't fully click.
Can
Maybe
I?
it's just because He Who Remains writes the same story for Loki every time.
That
Yeah,
sure.
I was gonna say I have a theory The first episode of season 2 is called Ouroboros, in reference to the character we meet, OB, but also that is the theme of the second season of the show. Ouroboros being, and I feel like this is a theory that's been populated around the web. So this is not me. I did
Mm-hmm.
not come up with this. But the Ouroboros meaning a snake eating its own tail.
Mm.
I think that just in the second season became crystallized as the mantra for the entire show, not just season 2, but like I think that's the problem with the plot. Is the narrative of the whole show is that no matter what you do, we're gonna end up at the same point every time, and
Mhm.
I feel like that's kind of hard to communicate to an audience.
Right, and in defense of the show and in praise of the finale again, it like having now seen this finale and saying what the writers were saying they were trying to do, where it wasn't really a TV show, it was just like two halves of a book, I think is what the
Yeah,
head writer said.
yeah,
Like I do think it's like, okay, so you just wanted to take Loki on a character journey. So like the story, like not that it doesn't matter, that sounds too dismissive, but kind of like
mm.
they cared more about Loki's journey than having a plot that fully works. I think
Mm.
that's more true with season 2. I really don't care about this time loom, guys. I like I really don't. Like I'll be honest, I was like flat out struggling with this show for a while, like in season 2.
Interesting,
Like I was like
interesting.
season 1, I like it, and then season 2, like when they were just looking for Brad, I was like, did I miss something? They jumped ahead here.
Yeah, I remember you saying
I
that.
kind
Yeah,
of like the Victor Timely episode in season 3 because it was like them going to the old west and all that stuff. And then 4, like I don't really remember 4, but then 5, once it was about Loki admitting that he cares about people, and 6, obviously I was like, okay, it like the connective tissue finally is emerging here. But those first 4 episodes, I don't know, I was struggling.
I don't think you were alone though.
I don't
I
think
think
so. I feel like this season more than season 1 was like everyone agreed, and even the stuff I've said, I liked season 1 a lot. Everyone was like, this is really good. Season 2, I feel like was very 50-50. People were like, this is amazing, or this is not that great, but Tom Hiddleston, Kiki
you
Kwan, and
right.
Owen Wilson are great. Like it was
There's a
that kind of thing.
value. There's a value in the acting, and to me, the production, the fact they're using physical sets
Yes,
and like the world that they've built there in the TVA that
100%.
elevates it above almost anything else. Like even with a shaky narrative, like it doesn't matter because of some of those things.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think what they were talking about too with the two halves of a book, I think season 2 is stronger if you like binge it with season 1 now. Or
Yes,
like
mm, yeah,
if you don't look at it as 2 seasons but like one 12 episode show,
yes.
I've
I think
actually
it's a
thought
lot
about doing that
I
in
think
a
it's a
couple
lot
months.
stronger.
Yeah, okay, I'm interested. You should like. I feel like we should do that. We should like give it a test. Because like, do y'all think this would have worked better? 12 episodes, like almost like they did with Andor, just all at once.
Probably, I would like it better.
Interesting. That's very
I
interesting.
think
Now that I know that they're not trying to do a TV series for like 5 or 7 years, like it's a thing of 2020 is hindsight always. Now that I know that like it was always intended to be a final thing,
Yeah,
I do wonder like I understand that where they split it up slash
yeah,
end
yeah,
season 1, like that makes sense because it is this big mic drop of like the variants are coming and Kang and all that
yeah.
stuff. But yeah, from a character perspective, I think just living in Loki's headspace fully that entire time, I think I would emotionally resonate with the show
Yeah.
more.
I think I think if they had started out this multiverse saga with this whole 12 episode show instead of like WandaVision and then
Mm,
half of this show and then some of their other stuff, if they'd started the multiverse with this
yes.
and kind of explained the mechanics of it, I think some of their other stuff would have gone over better.
Yeah.
Where people are like, okay, the multiverse is suddenly popping up in everything
But
for some
for some
reason.
reason, we don't know why.
And now we kind of have the whole story of like, oh, well, this is why the multiverse is popping up because Loki kind of created the multiverse pretty much. So
He did.
I think this whole show, and it would have been seen, you know, maybe as Marvel's Andor, like you were saying,
Yeah.
where you look at Andor versus like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka and The Mandalorian, you look at Andor and say, this is
It's clear.
something
It's
else.
clearly different. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Whereas you can look at this where Secret Invasion stunk. Ant Man and the
Don't even
Wasp,
utter its name.
Ant Man and the Wasp, kind of stunk. Uh, I recently saw the Marvels, and it was not as bad as those two.
Okay,
so
that's
so
hopeful.
I'll say that. But you look at those stories, and you see like this bad CGI and half baked stories and everything, and then you look at Loki, is like, this is what we want to do, and they go and do it, and someone else can. It feels like with the end of Loki, someone else can pick it up if they want, or just leave it.
Yes.
I think I think it's a sad but satisfying end to Loki if we never see him again, which I think we will. But um, it's just different because you don't look at the Loki show and be like, yeah, this episode was fine, but that scene kind of looked fake. It's like what we were saying with the sets, like everything looks top notch.
Yeah.
This is like if they took a classic Marvel movie like Infinity War or something and did it as like a TV show version. You don't feel like it's the cheap version. It's not the
Right.
Walmart. It's not Walmart brand Marvel. This is name brand Marvel right here.
That's
And
right. Great way
don't
of
get me
putting it.
wrong, I love Great Value, but also
There's
it's
a
Great
time and
Value.
place. Let's have some decorum, like
Look, I'm cool with Great Value, like plates and forks and stuff, but sometimes I want Tyson chicken.
yeah.
So I'm not here for Dr. Thunder or whatever those fake Dr. Peppers are. Although I will say Mr. Pibb is very good, but this feels like Marvel hitting its stride again. And
All right, so we were talking about a lot of what we liked and disliked about this season, and I think originally where we're at is that, we have two different ways of looking at Loki's character arc through the Infinity Saga and through the TV show. And you started out, Trent, by saying like they're essentially the same, but like, can y'all pick out a difference between them?
I guess I can, in the sense that the one in the Infinity Saga is more about how his relationship with Thor makes him realize that being a villain isn't worth anything, whereas the one in the show is more, hey, like, other people in general matter, which is probably a
Mhm.
better, more humanitarian approach and seems a little more nuanced than just like, hey, my brother like showed me that being mean is bad.
Mm.
Um, that's
Yeah.
very reductive, but like, if like, to sum that up quickly,
Well, I think too, it's you see all the time people that are kind of like you know selfish, like Loki's shown to be in the movies sometimes, or at the very least more self-serving, and then they get nailed with this like giant responsibility that they have to deal with, and they don't really have any choice but to mature and change. And I think that's kind of what we see with Loki, where he drinks the Kool-Aid on the TVA and is like, you know what, there's a purpose to this, and he's burdened with his glorious purpose, and he grows into that responsibility of, okay, I have to do this, instead of just wanting to do this. And so I think it's more his own self discovery of what he can be. Plus, I think he kind of liked spiting the story that had been written for him. I think that was
Yes.
part of it too, where he's like, I'm supposed to lose and die and never be anything but a prop for Thor and his development that Kang wants for him. And so he's kind of like, in a way, he's taking control of his own story, which he talks about a little bit in the show as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. He's rewriting the story that was shown right before his eyes. And I agree with y'all that this is like a one up. This is a improvement upon, who he was in the Infinity Saga to being a fully fledged hero. I will say I feel like there were moments in this show where, similar to how we see him in the Infinity Saga, where like if you give Loki an inch of room and he sees a way to kind of connive and find a way to gain some power, he's gonna do it. And I honestly saw that as in season 2, especially the first half of the season. Loki is, like you mentioned it, Joseph, like Loki is dead set on, he has drank the TVA Kool-Aid, he has seen He Who Remains, and he is like, we have to preserve the TVA at all costs. But it's kind of like, okay, because Sylvie points out to him, like, you want to do that, but you want to do that and be the one calling the shots. And so I almost feel like it really isn't until the very end that we see Loki completely turn and be able to lay down his own desires. Right? What do you guys think?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, it's an interesting thing of, yeah, like basically he's still like, hey, we can fix it all and do it perfectly, and it's he gets to connive, but also he learns that you can only connive to a point. Which is,
Yeah.
I love that speech that Mobius gives him, where at the end of the day, it's just like you just have to choose your burden.
Yes.
There's no right and wrong per se in some situations. It's just about like which one can you live with more, and that's like the final lesson Loki has to learn. It's like you can scheme a little bit and change things a little bit, but like it's either you have to give up on Sylvie and
Yeah.
like know that that relationship is lost to you forever, basically, or all direct relationships are lost to you, but you get to know that they will like flourish and live and get to choose for themselves what they want now. And it's like which one of those can you live with? And he
Yeah.
chooses.
What? So something else I'm thinking about is, do you think Loki could have, theoretically, like, because they're not explaining to us power wise how this all works, could Loki have let Sylvie be the one to sit on the throne and hold all the multiverses together at the very end?
Ooh, that would be interesting. I don't
I
know.
don't,
I don't know
I
if he
don't,
could.
I don't think she could have.
You don't think so?
No,
Well, the
because they
problem
kind
is
of go.
we don't ever know why he starts time slipping, do we? Or did I already forget like
I
why?
think I think He Who Remains does something
Oh,
to him. I
I don't
saw a
think I
theory
realized
that it
that.
was maybe because like he goes through a time portal or something at the end of time, or
Mm.
I don't know. But I think I
Okay.
think He Who Remains does it because he was like, "Hey man, I've been waiting for you. So you ready to get down to business, or you want to keep fighting Sylvie?"
Interesting. Okay, I don't think I
I
picked up
think
on
that
that.
I think the time slipping is part of it. That's part of the reason he can do it, because he kind of has control of time too. Because remember, he does the like this thing where he
Yeah.
freezes
Yeah,
Sylvie.
yeah, yeah.
So I don't think she. I think he got a buff from He Who
Okay.
Remains. So I think it's something that only he can do.
Okay. Because I was thinking, like, if their powers were essentially the same, like it's just, it's ironic a little bit. Yes, it is a major sacrifice for Loki to essentially sentence himself to being alone for the rest of his life to do this, but he's also the one doing it. He's also the one still technically calling the shots.
Right.
I don't know if Sylvie would have done it either, because she wanted her own life and had kind of lived like that for her whole life after they had tried to prune her.
Yeah. It's true. And she just I just, it was just a thought experiment of like, I wonder if he would have given that responsibility to someone else, or if that's just Loki. Is that his nature to just, he wants to be the one somehow, some way.
I think Loki definitely still has that ego about him.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
Yeah.
he literally says like, "I know what God I kind of have to be." So like that
Yes.
said,
Yes.
even though it's like it's made somberly and sacrificially, like that sentence literally is still very prideful in
Yes.
concept. Like
Yes. Yes.
it's like
Exactly.
don't worry, guys. Like I'm gonna take the grenade, but also I get to be like the God of all time. So like your boys
mhm.
got it. Like
Exactly. I see. You guys know that I am currently reading for the, like, I am, and I'm so close, guys, reading Harry Potter for the first time. Like, I am so close to finishing it. By the way, like very very few pages are left in Deathly Hallows, but
Mm.
I see a little bit of Harry in Loki. I see a little bit of that same like you said, Trent. Like I'm gonna land on the grenade, but like I am a god. Like you get over it. Like I will be the one to be the hero. A little bit of Steve Rogers, even. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, sure.
there are shades of
I
these
think
other characters there in him.
I think he's got a difference from Steve Rogers though, in that he kind of wants to be seen doing his stuff,
Yeah.
whereas
Yeah.
Rogers is like, no, that's just kind of like who I am.
I mean, let's not forget Loki gave himself a wardrobe change as he's walking down that like gangplank to like
Yes.
destroy the. He's like, let me make sure I'm in my best threads to do this though.
I mean, did you see those
Yes.
slippers that Loki put on? Like,
Bro, they're fresh.
man's was dripped out. I mean,
He
just
Right.
gotta
was.
say,
Right. I'm not okay. Like just right off the dome. It's like, is that his best suit?
Yes, 100%.
I think it is. Cause like what we
mm,
see, what he's wearing in like the first Avengers or in Thor Ragnarok it's a little too bulky. It's a little more gold dripping everywhere. This is so sleek and
It's-
just like it's kind of monotone, but I like it.
this is like Loki's version of, you remember the outfit Thor has at the beginning of Ragnarok? That's just like the plain leather.
Yes, yes.
It's like Loki's version of that.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right.
And you know, the Asgard boys, they're like, the cape game's got to be on too.
Oh yeah, yeah. Gotta have a good cape.
I honestly think that's the reason Loki did it. Is he's like, I can't do this and not have a cape billowing in the wind. Like,
Look, I mean, capes are cool.
they
They
are.
are. They
Just-
are
I mean,
despite what
objectively
Ed-
cool.
Despite what
Let's
Edna
look at
says,
that.
they are cool.
Yeah, and for her reasoning, she's correct.
She's right.
She's right, but she's
Are we
wrong.
gonna-
You know.
Are we gonna act like when the white doors bust open and Darth Vader and his billowing cape walks through, you're not like, yeah, that's not like the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly. So, Trent, you mentioned this. You mentioned this a little while ago of how Thor is kind of the driving force of his arc in Infinity War, but like all people are in this show. I was curious, like, who do we think has the biggest impact on the character of Loki? And I put some candidates down here. And y'all feel free to add your own, but I could think of 4 that I felt like were the biggest, and that's Thor, Frigga, Mobius, Sylvie. Do we think there's anyone else that deserves to be named? Who?
Odin.
Odin?
Ooh,
Yeah.
Odin,
Yeah.
the-
Odin is yes. Yes.
It's true. The daddy issues with Loki are
There are-
strong, so they
I
need to be
wasn't
acknowledged.
Yeah,
Exactly. I wasn't thinking about the daddy issues. Yep. Yep.
they don't interact a whole lot, but basically everything about Loki goes back to the daddy issues.
And when I rewatched episode 1, season 1, he is like distraught when he watches his dad die in the
Mhm.
future.
Oh,
So
major
it's
bummage.
it's more meaningful than I remembered. So
No,
there's
I
our
mean,
5
honestly,
then.
I think it's real to cop out a little bit, and I make up the rules as I go here.
That's
I
right.
think the honest answer is it's like a tie between Odin and Mobius because they're kind of like the two father figures who together like
Oh.
get him where he needs to go. Because Odin
I
like
can
sets
get-
him
I
up
can
on
get
like
behind that.
Interesting.
Odin
so you
sets
see,
him up on this thing where it's like you need to take on this role of authority, and like both my sons were destined to be kings of something, and then like but it's this very like competition, achievement, dominance based thing, and then Mobius comes in and he's like, hey, do you actually like hurting people? And like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like you can have moments of power, but you got to still choose your burden. And so I think it is those two ideologies sort of meeting in the middle that gets us this anti-hero Loki mode, basically. So I think it's
Yeah.
both Mobius and Odin.
Because Odin puts all this pressure on Loki, and then Mobius is like, "Hey man, you want to just be like friends or something?
You just want to eat some
Yeah.
pie? Like, let's go get some key lime pie.
that's a
like-
pretty good impersonation, Joseph.
You want to just like hang out in the TVA?" And he's like, "We'll be best buds." Wow, which he never said in the show, so I was kind of sad.
That is
Bummer.
disappointing.
Big bummer.
Very
Oh.
disappointing.
But yeah, I can get behind uh, Odin and Mobius being like. See, what I was thinking is like Odin is the devil on his shoulder, and Mobius is like the little angel.
Yeah,
Yeah, that works
yeah.
too.
I like that too. Y'all don't think Thor is? Y'all don't think Thor is the most important character?
I think it's more like it's less Thor himself than like him seeing like the impact of good that Thor has and being like, okay, I guess I see the benefits of not being like the worst human ever or worst person ever. Like,
I think I think Thor to him, obviously he loves Thor, but I think Thor to him is just like his competition
Yeah.
to beat out for Odin.
and I do think fundamentally, even when he is in like full redeemed mode at the end of Ragnarok, I do think he fundamentally thinks that like Thor is dumber and like worse than him in some ways. Even when he's on like the good
Interesting.
alignment chart, I think he does like be like, oh, like
I mean,
A little bit, a little bit.
I can get behind Thor being dumber.
no, I
Oh, for
can too
sure.
as a
Same,
character. I'm just
same.
saying though, I think that stops Thor from being fully impactful to him emotionally because I don't think he
Mhm.
fully takes him seriously. Like he loves him, but
See,
he's like, oh, you scamp. Like,
yeah, for sure.
like
Yeah.
I
that's what I mean.
also, but I think with Thor, there is a like for the first half or more of Loki's arc in the movies, Thor is a presence of shame
For
to
sure.
Loki.
For sure.
Loki looks at him and he feels immediate like shame and worse about himself because of who
Mhm.
Thor is. Because Thor was cast out. Thor was like squandering his opportunities, but he made something of himself and became worthy. Whereas Loki, like, was just assumed to never be worthy and never got a chance to prove it. And I think there is something that is real, like that feeling of shame really illustrates the character of Loki for most of our time with him. It's like he never really allows himself to be anything more than a power grabbing like source, a power grabbing villain, because he could never be Thor. He could never earn that kind of love and connection.
Yeah, I agree.
Now is it stronger than Mobius? I don't know. I don't know.
And maybe it's recency bias. I just feel like that final conversation with Loki is what actually pushes him to take that throne at the end. I really think it. I think there's an argument to be made if in another universe where Mobius doesn't give him that speech in that way, like he maybe does something different.
Oh,
And
I
so maybe
completely agree.
that's part of my bias here too.
It's one of my favorite scenes in the whole show, I
Me
think.
too. Me too.
It's and I also like there is a friendship. The friendship between Loki and Mobius is maybe stronger than the friendship that Loki was able to develop with Thor in his time on Earth. Like
Mhm.
in his time on the timeline. Like
Right. Yeah.
what he develops with Mobius is like genuine like love and respect for another human being that like I don't know if we see him have that with anyone else. I don't know if we do. I genuinely don't know if we do, because Sylvie came up in my mind too as like a really strong proponent of like who's had the most impact on Loki, but I still don't think it's stronger than what he had with Mobius.
No, because I mean, Sylvie's important, like I said earlier, in that he's able to objectively look at his personality, like the core personality pros and flaws of himself in Sylvie, because she's also a Loki, and that's what's
Yeah,
so great about the character and the concept. But at the end of the day, yeah, I think it comes back to Mobius, and part of that too for me is I don't love. I get why because the plot sort of demands it, but like Sylvie took a back seat in season
yeah,
two compared
Yeah.
to season one that I don't really like. And so
I
I
can
think
get behind that as a criticism of the
that
show.
me too, me
that
too.
undermines. I think if she's a different presence in season two, it changes how I have this conversation. I think it
Yeah,
would shoot her way up on that list, but yeah, I don't love what they do with her in season
because
two, to be honest.
yeah, she does take the backseat, and it almost makes her just a tool for Loki to learn to love himself.
Yes.
That
Which
that
maybe you could argue looking back at season one, she always was, like in a script sense, that was true, but it felt so evident in season two,
yes,
aggressively so,
She
that
had she had more to do in season one. It
So
seemed
much
like
more.
they actually have the fight where they split and she ends up killing He Who Remains, but also she's going around like taking out some TVA agents and doing some stuff that
Yeah.
Loki in the show didn't do, and
Right.
they kind of have
Right.
to work
Right.
that out. And then in season two, she's just kind of like, I hate the TVA.
Let me go back to McDonald's.
I want to work at McDonald's.
Like those are the only two things she says for an entire season of television, and I'm just like,
I
why?
know they really did her a disservice because I at the end of season one I would have told you there's a romance. Like Loki is in love with himself because of Sylvie, but like he's in love with Sylvie.
Yeah.
At the end of season two, I'm like, I don't think so. Like she's just not around enough for that romance to continue to like form. It was disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if she's not around in season two at all, which I'd have to go back and look at it, but does it measurably change much about what happened?
No, right? Because she's just against the TVA being saved and he's pro it the whole time. And that's the source of their conflict.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she wants to kill Timely, and then she's like, "Nah, I'm not going to do that."
It's almost like, yeah, you guys are right. Like she's essentially saying the same thing all season, and it's not
Mhm.
until the very last moment that Loki listens and chooses to follow her advice. It's literally not until the very last second.
Yeah, because I think throughout the whole show, him and her and Mobius and most of the TVA are like, "Yeah, we'll let the multiverse be a thing."
Yeah,
So they're kind of in agreement on that. Just the TVA's like, we also want to protect it from threats, and she's like, "Nah, just let them run
yep,
wild."
yep. So I want to. I'm going to transition us into Loki season 2 review time because that's kind of where we're at now. We're talking about the season. I feel like we've all kind of probably revealed our cards a little bit and how we feel about it and how we feel about this season. But is there anything like you haven't said yet that you would like to say about Loki season 2?
No, I mean, again, I agree with you guys. I think the production design and the cinematography and all that stuff from a technical standpoint is outstanding. I think besides Wakanda, the TVA might be like the best
Yeah.
fictional world realized within the MCU at this point. Performances are outstanding. I already shouted out Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson. I thought Hunter B-15, I'm forgetting the performer's name. I thought she was
Yeah.
excellent. Like I was so curious what they were going to do with that character and that realization at the end of season 1. It's like, is this character going to get a step up in what to do in season 2? And she did. That I would not be upset at all if Hunter B-15 comes around again because I really like that character now.
Yeah.
And yeah, Owen Wilson.
Casey seemed more involved too.
Yeah, Casey's great. Obviously Ki-Hee Kwan. I will support the Ki-Hee Kwan Renaissance.
My man.
Till the end of time. He's outstanding. And yeah, that finale is just like the best finale Disney Plus has done so far. Between what Loki does and that Mobius speech, man, I'm gonna be thinking about that for a long time. So yeah, my issues with the actual week to week plotting of the show aside, a really solid, fun experience week to week, and a great character piece for Loki himself for sure.
Trent, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Mobius speech or Luthen rail monologue?
I was literally thinking about that. I'm like, it's kind of like the Luthen thing. I mean, Luthen, just for how hard the like I burn myself for a sunrise I'll never see or whatever that line.
Yeah,
like that is the coldest line I've ever heard ever.
God, it's goated.
So that alone puts it above, but it's close for me.
I made my mind to sunless space.
Yes, like
yeah. As much as I love that speech, like, nah, it's Luthen all the way. Like that will, I don't know if we'll ever see something as good as that in this genre of stuff before. Joseph, I have a question for you though. Like Trey was just talking like this is the best Disney Plus season finale. Is it better than the Marshall though?
And you know how much I love the Marshal. But then we also have what was it, Shadow Warrior from Ahsoka?
Oh, right.
Oh, we
right.
do have Shadow Warrior now.
That was a contender. I forgot about that.
And the Marshal's just such a tight storyline.
you can't break his will. He could do this all day.
I don't know, man. I really love the Marshal.
It's so good.
It's a great
I
episode.
think
It's a great episode
I
of TV.
think I think this one is better when you look at the whole than the Marshal. But as like a one-off,
Yeah.
because you can
We know
show
what you're
anybody, you can show anybody the Marshal and be like, all right, here's a great episode of TV,
Yeah.
just out of nowhere.
Kick back,
But
relax, have a good time.
But if you showed somebody this episode to someone who's never seen the rest of the Loki show, they're going to be like, "What the heck am I watching?"
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So
All
I
right.
think the Marshal is more accessible.
Oh yeah, for sure. Now you can say it's better. It's okay. We know. I hear what you're saying.
You know.
As
Yeah.
Joseph's translator, he's saying the Marshal is better.
Yeah.
But so I think the Marshal is better at certain things, and then this one is better at certain things.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. Cool. I still know what I hear. Yeah. For myself, Loki season 2 was like. See, I'm a little different than you, Trent. I actually thought the Breaking Brad episode was incredible. I loved that episode so much. Another highlight of the season is the actor playing Brad.
He's great.
Is fantastic. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I absolutely loved his performance.
Rafael Casal is his name.
There we
I
go.
only know that
Thank
because
you.
great performance in the movie Blind Spotting. If you have not checked out Blind Spotting,
I haven't seen that.
That's a totally different recommend, not fandom related at all. Totally different thing, but great movie.
Okay,
I don't
cool.
know why I can't remember. Did Brad die, or is he still around?
So that was going to be my
Great
question. Thank
question.
you. I'm like, I don't know what happened to Brad.
Great question.
Do we know what happened to Victor Timely?
It seems that when Loki created his new reality, because they show the young Victor waiting in his workshop,
They
but
do,
like
yeah.
the book doesn't get dropped in the window.
Well, no, I thought they switched it to a different book, like a new, because OB makes the second edition of the TVA handbook.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's supposed to be that we're just seeing all the different potentials, like OB like created a handbook with Victor in one, but we're also seeing one where like Victor never got the book at all. I don't know. It's that was kind of a weird.
Yeah, I didn't understand
Edit.
that either. Okay, interesting. I'm not sure.
But anyway, sorry, Josh, we kind of cut you off on your.
threads.
Oh no, it's all good.
Thoughts here.
Actually, I'll wrap this up because I want to talk like theories and stuff because this has got my brain moving. I started out really enjoying it. The middle of the season took a dip for me. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I started getting a little worn out by the TV. The inner workings of the TVA was not really compelling to me. And then by the time we brought it all home in the finale, I'm like, this is great. This is one of the greatest shows. Like this is like one of however you want to rank it or rate it or grade it. This is one of my favorite shows. Period. I would say, the entire season 1 to season 2 of Loki is going down as one of my favorite shows. Like personally, and that doesn't mean I loved every second of it, but like I tend to judge things on like how much are you thinking about this after it's over, and if I have thought about Loki so much since it's ended, and I think that means something. If the story is so good that you can't stop, you can't help but keep thinking about it. That means they did something right. So I think all in all, really really solid. You guys want to talk about some theories?
I can try to make one.
So I maybe not theories, just like speculation. Like what is going to happen next? Like, do we see Loki again?
We have to. I feel like if not, there has to be some reference to him in the Kang Dynasty. Assuming that movie still happens. I know there's a lot of rumors happening right now with the Kang Dynasty as a project. If that movie exists in what we think it's going to be, I don't know how you do that story and not have him involved. I'm assuming the way that they are going to solve the Kang conflict, because it's the whole thing of like people are wondering if it's variance upon variance, how do you solve this?
Yeah.
My theory is the whole thing is going to end somehow with all like either the core Kang or all the Kangs, whatever they mechanize it as being, is going to be imprisoned somewhere. And I think the only place that makes sense is like with Loki at the end of time. Like that's the only place that Kang could
Wow.
go and not be a threat to the multiverse. Is
Interesting.
that he's just floating in some like space cube next to Loki somewhere.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think that's how it might get tied in.
I think we may not see Loki until Secret Wars,
Yeah, I'm with
and
you.
I think he's going to be the one that drives assembling the multiversal heroes. So, like, we've all heard the rumors like the X-Men are going to be in it. Some of the Fox X-Men, Hugh Jackman may be in it. Tobey Maguire,
Toby.
Andrew
Yep.
Garfield may be in it. I think it'd be really funny if they got like Wesley Snipes' Blade in it.
Yes. Oh,
Yes,
wouldn't that be
let's
so
go.
cool? That wouldn't be. Hey, they
I'd
might.
really-
I've also heard they might bring. We might get like animated Miles and Gwen.
I'd be cool with that.
I think
But
Beyond
I think
the Spider-Verse as a title means something. That's all I'll say real quick. I think it means something.
Ooh. Let's go.
yeah, I think he'll have a role in assembling the Avengers.
Yeah.
So it'll be full circle again for Loki because he assembled the Avengers the first time.
Yes.
And he's gonna assemble them again.
Oh, that's poetic. I
That's
love
perfect.
that. To me, I would be disappointed if we didn't. Only not because of his story is complete, but the story of the Marvel universe, like it doesn't make sense if there was no variant of Kang that was like, hey, what if I just go to the end of time and control everything, similar to how he who remains did it? Like that's to me where the conflict is driving. It's like they've got to find some way to keep Loki on that chair and keep Kang off of it. So if we didn't see Loki again, I would be a little disappointed in that way. Another question I have: will we see these TVA characters again?
100%. I mean, they've confirmed that for Deadpool 3, I think, at this point.
So is that confirmed?
It's at least
I
confirmed
mean-
that Miss Minutes and Mobius are in.
Oh, okay.
Deadpool.
Okay.
Well,
Three.
I've
I
seen
didn't
things
realize that was
recently
confirmed.
that Mobius might not actually.
Oh,
be
okay.
in it. So
Okay.
Sorry,
I don't-
my bad.
So he might be in there.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's really funny because basically what I've heard is the TVA finds out that Deadpool has like the little time travel thing that he got at the
Yes.
end of the second movie from Cable,
Oh, yeah.
and they're going to recruit Wolverine as part of their multiversal Avengers, and Wolverine basically tells them the 4-letter word off. And Deadpool's like, "No, buddy, we have to go."
I love that. I really hope that happens. My answer is yes, I definitely think we're seeing these characters again. At
Mhm.
least Mobius and probably Miss
B-15.
Minutes, and I was gonna say Renslayer. I think
Well,
Renslayer is in
she's-
the void.
They had the little purple light, but we didn't see a body. But I think they were implying she gets eaten by a Goliath.
Oh, you think
I think they were implying that, actually, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What? Because see, part of me thinks like she's out there and she's going to learn to like essentially control Goliath.
Ooh,
Maybe
that'd
we
be
get
interesting.
maybe we get variants of Renslayer too.
That could be that. I could see that happening too. So the other thing I want to bring up is I saw one of the producers of Loki say that basically asked this question like, "You're not doing Loki season 3, but what happens next?" And he was like, "If Loki is our Breaking Bad, we want to find our Better Call Saul."
Mm.
I can get
And
down.
I'm
with
just, are
that.
y'all like? I'm down. I'm super down for that. Like,
Yeah.
imagine if we got a TVA spinoff where we just like we're just watching Mobius and the gang like hop from multiverse to multiverse, hunting down Kangs or like recruiting Avengers. Like, I would kind of love that.
Yeah. I think the TVA as a world is too interesting to just put it on a shelf just because Loki's story is done.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think it could be a good way to build up Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, where they're like hunting Kangs, but start getting overwhelmed with how many of them there
Yeah.
are.
I feel like if this theory that Loki's going to recruit the best Avengers from every universe is true, I think we're gonna need to do a draft. I think we're gonna need to draft the best heroes from every universe. I did that just like who's on y'all's draft board? Who's
Ooh,
going number one?
I don't know. We can't give away
I
strategy this
mean,
early.
I
We
mean,
can't say who's trying to get Caleb Williams, yet. Like,
I don't know. For me, I would definitely like number one on my board is definitely Morbius.
I'll take Madam Web, or we'll see how that stupid Craven movie goes. It's like, oh no, Madam Web got bit by a radioactive spider too, and Morbius got bit by a radioactive bat, and Venom is a symbiote. And oh, Craven got attacked by a radioactive tiger.
he got like lion blood in him.
Yeah,
Obviously.
and since all of these movies just have an evil version of the main characters, like, oh well, who else got evil lion blood in them that Craven has to fight?
Just everything's radioactive in that universe. You can just
Yeah, I mean,
assume.
Venom's already fought two other Venoms, and so we'll see.
Someone's gonna like.
We'll see what the third one is.
Someone's gonna accidentally like sprinkle some like something like some lime juice or something like that in a cut, and it turns out the lime was radioactive, and they're like
There'll be
a big fruit.
There'll
like
be a radioactive bag of Doritos that Mrs. Chen eats at
Yes.
like the convenience store.
There you
Yes,
go. There you go.
exactly. Anything is possible. Well, guys, do you have anything else to add on the character of Loki?
I don't think so. I think we gave our boy justice in this last hour or so we've been talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so too. Loki, an excellent character, maybe the greatest MCU character of all time. If you've got specific thoughts on that, definitely let us know.
Sounds like a draft.
It sounds like another draft. I mean, I know we love the draft around here. So, as always, thank you all so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcast, and subscribe on YouTube, and stay tuned. We got big announcements coming soon. So like follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the Stinger Pod. We're very excited for the end of the year here on the Stinger. So stay tuned, and we can't wait to talk to you soon.